Oh man, today I'm really fortunate to have a true legend with us. He had 12 hits by the age of just 21, including one of the most memorable number one hits of all time. We sing it all the time. But then the Beatles came onto the scene and his music went out of style in a flash. I mean, overnight. He was considered a square from there on out, and for over a decade, he was shut out of the charts. Not only that, he had to move to England to get any kind of gig. Times were so tough, he had to play dives in seedy bars to as little as 20 people, and a couple times he had to follow strippers up in his act. Then one night, the number one star in the world caught his show, and he hatched a plan to wage one of the greatest comebacks ever. He had his first number one hit in 12 years, and he followed that up with a duet with this fellow legend that was pretty edgy for his goody two-shoes persona, but somehow it got past censors with a pretty serious profanity, and it hit number one, and he also became the first artist to remake his first number one hit. He turned it into a ballad completely different, and getting to number one again, and this same song was a hit 5 different times. The story, the interview's coming up. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. Make sure to subscribe below to be part of our channel. Gonna get right into this. It's time for another edition of our series Revelations, where artists share rare stories about their greatest songs and albums, and today is a whopper of a tale. You're gonna love this. I love this guy. We have one of the pioneers of the rock era. He was second only to Elvis Presley in sales for several years. He had 12 hits before the age of 21, including one of the most popular songs ever that's been a hit 5 different times. Talking about Neil Sedaka with Breaking Up Is Hard to Do. We all know it by heart. But then, just like that, the Beatles came onto the scene, and overnight Sedaka was toast, basically. He'd get shut out of the charts for almost 12 years. He even had to move across the sea to get any kind of gig. He would play with strippers and to audiences of just a few dozen. Then one night, Elton John caught his act. And after the show, he went backstage and he planned a strategy to wave this huge comeback. What a comeback it would be. He had 3 number one hits, including Laughter in the Rain. Ooh, I hear laughter in the rain. Whoa. And his duet with Elton himself, Bad Blood. In fact, Bad Blood would become Sedaka's biggest chart hit, number one for 3 weeks. Helped by his friend Elton John, who was inspired by him, he duetted with him, and in a strange coincidence, the song was actually knocked out of its number one position by an Elton John song, Island Girl. Kind of cool. Island Girl, Island Girl, Island Girl. Bad Blood was quite the departure for this conservative singer, though. A bitter breakup song by an artist who was a throwback to the innocent 50s. The song became the first number one hit with a serious profanity in it, where he refers to the woman as a... Sedaka would say in an interview, and I quote, "The lyric is a little controversial with words like and such. I like it because it's not such a goody-goody two-shoes thing. That's the mistake I made in my first career. The songs were too predictable. There's just no message intended." So coming up next, Neil Sedaka recounts the story of his first number one hit and his big comeback, as well as the story of Bad Blood. Well, let's get into it. Well, Breaking Up Is Hard to Do. Just simply one of the greatest songs of all time. Number one in America and number one on every Cashbox, Record World, Billboard. Just an incredible song. Breaking up is hard to do. Everly Brothers, Kathy's Clan. I always read that had the dance beat had a little bit of
bit. I came up with the title, gave it to Howie, and he said, "No, I'm not ready for that. I'm working on this one." Put it aside month after month. I said, "When are we getting to Breaking Up Is Hard to Do? Here's the tune." And I had heard It Will Stand by the Showman. It was a local hit here first in LA. I said, holy, there's something about that performance, that marriage of his voice and the tune and the thing. I said, I'm going to listen to his voice and the beat and write something similar. And Howie nailed it, an idea that's universal. Don't you leave my heart in misery. everybody breaks up. Everybody hopes to make up.
That's right.
And the night before the session, I called the arranger, Alan Lorber, and I said, I came up with an obligato line. I want to put it under the whole record. Do-do-do down, doobie-doo down, down.
Down, doobie-doo, down, down. Comma, down, doobie.
Under the whole record. Don't take your love, doobie-doo down, down. So there were 3 kneels. In those days, we had four tracks. So I did the doobie-doo, the harmony, and the final lead vocal last, because that had the presence. The others kind of diminished in volume.
Think of all that we've been through, and breaking up is hard.
I said, reminds me of the Fleetwoods. And as I was singing, I said, if this is not number 1, I'll eat this record. It had a little Latin thing to it.
I love the harmonies. That's what makes it completely unique.
The middle part, David Foster, who was a dear friend of mine, said, don't take your love away from me. That's common. If you go, then I'll be blue. But they say that breaking up is
hard to do.
holy. I stopped my car in Canada because you were the first one to do a minor 7. Now I know. Then it's true. Don't say that there's, well, I was a study musician.
Well, when Elton John calls it one of the greatest songs of all time, I mean, that's incredible. But it's so unique. And of course, the cookies are on it. And you said this before, but you taught them the parts on the way to the session.
That's right.
What to sing and tell me about that.
Going in the car, we would go over the harmonies. And then, of course, when we got to the studio before the tape was rolling, we perfected it. Stevie Wonder comes to me, and many times when I see Stevie, he said, I loved Neil Sedaka because that when the Cookies sang Little Devil, he said, I loved, oh, Little Devil. And he said, they used to call me Whitey in Detroit because they said, who's your favorite singer? Neil Sedaka. Because I love, oh, Little Devil.
You've got me all in a whirl. You little devil. You're a cute.
Yeah.
The Cookies.
I love it. Well, not only influenced Elton John and David Foster, but also Barry Gibb, Paul Schaefer.
They were very, very good friends of mine. I was very close to Morris Gibb of the Bee Gees, and we were always great friends. We had that in common, the harmony, the structure. And my songs, I think, along with the Bee Gees songs, are a combination of pop, rock. They could be on a theater piece, on a stage, R&B. It's an interesting combination of all of those styles. Of course, my mentors were George Gershwin, Irving Berlin, Rodgers and Hart, Rodgers and Hammerstein. So you can hear in those rock and roll, they weren't typical bubblegum songs. You can hear good structure.
Instead of breaking up, I wish that we were making up again.
In those days, they had the tip sheets.
Oh, yeah.
And that was very important. You saw how many stations were playing you. I wrote postcards in the old days to every station, program director of every station, personally, dozens, hundreds. Thank you for putting Happy Birthday, Sweet 16 on your playlist.
Happy birthday, sweet 16.
I read a story that your manager, that he tried to mess with when you were recording Breaking Up It's Hard to Do, and Lou Adler punched him out. Is that true?
There was a punch out, yes, during the session of Breaking Up Is Hard to Do. Lou Adler and Ben Sutter, may he rest. It was a big fight.
You tell that story about singing the vocal, retracking the vocal, the harmonies. It's just incredible.
Well, I loved harmony singing. That's why I started the Tokens. When I was 3 years old, my mother bought me a record by the Moylan sisters, and it was sisters harmonizing, and I was mesmerized at 3 years old. So I can hear the harmony over and over and over.
Can we give our love another
The other thing that was great about Breaking Up Is Hard to Do is that when you did the slow version, I want to talk about that because that's the mark of a great song.
Lenny Welch had Since I Fell for You.
Since I fell for you.
He was a friend of mine. He said, "Do you have any ballad that can follow it?" And I was fooling around at the piano and discovered that Breaking Up was like a saloon song. It was a gin mill song. Because Howie's lyric was very, very exact for a gin mill song. It was strange that a lyric like Breaking Up Is Hard to Do was a hit. Down, doobie, do, down, down. Breaking up is hard. But don't take your love with a Dinah Washington feel away from me. And Lenny Welch said, "I'm recording that."
Don't take your love.
And it went to the top 40.
Number 34.
34. Yeah. And then I put it in my act as an encore. And it went so well that Robert Appere, my record producer, said, "Let's re-record Breaking Up Is Hard to Do."
You tell me that you're leaving.
He said, "I don't think anybody ever took the same song, changed the tempo, and it was a hit all over again with another tempo."
Breaking up is hard to do.
Of course, so many covers. The Partridge Family took it to the charts as well.
Breaking up is hard to do.
And of course, Gloria Estefan, Andy Williams, Tom Jones, The Carpenters, The Four Seasons, Carole King.
Don't take your love away from me.
It's a song that is always used whenever somebody breaks up. It's used on Better Off Dead. I remember as a kid watching that movie.
Breaking up is hard to do. Don't take your...
It's been used in so much pop culture. We'd be here forever if we listened
And
to it all.
also in newspapers, it was the caption of many corporations breaking up. And,
Exactly. I've seen it when celebrity couples have broken up. And And then 62 Next Door to an Angel. That went to number 5. That was actually your last top 10 in 12 years. And I want to talk about this because this is such an amazing story. The world needs to know more about this. I mean, of course, there's been books written on it and so many things like that. But young people need to understand what a great comeback this was and perseverance. I think it's such a great example of never giving up and believing in what your art is.
I'm a survivor.
No question.
I was off the charts 10 or 12 years writing. I had Tom Jones record, Fifth Dimension record, Peggy Lee record, Tony Christie, Amarillo in England. And then
1964, though.
Was
the Beatles Come to America.
Beatles and Rolling Stones.
It was everybody. Everybody, even Elvis Presley.
The solo American singer was kaput.
Yeah. Elvis he only had one top 10 hit in like 7 years, Crying in the Chapel.
Dick Fox, he was an agent of mine, said, you should be booked in London. Let me book you in England. Because they still had great respect for the original American rock and rollers.
Yeah.
So I went to England and I did all these hole-in-the-wall clubs. Finally, I went to the Albert Hall. I was the opening act for Thelma Houston.
Thelma Houston.
And that was the breaking point. Elton John saw me. He came backstage and he said, I could make you a star again. I'm starting Rocket Records. He said, I'm coming to your flat in London. We had a flat. And play me some of the new songs you're writing. And I played a few, including Laughter in the Rain. He said, I am going to record you. We came back to America on Santa Monica Boulevard, and I recorded Laughter in the Rain for Elton John's Rocket Records.
One of my favorite songs of all time. That's a song that when it comes on the radio, it's illegal to turn the station. It has to be. It has to be a law because it's just such a feel-good song.
Now
when you feel it. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Here's the story. I was driving the car in New York, and on the radio, this is 2 weeks before my Laughter came out. I was flipping the channel, flipping the stations, and on the radio came Laughter in the Rain by Leah Roberts.
Oh, yeah.
A great f***ing record. I said, oh my God, I'm ruined. My comeback song, she's going to have a smash.
Because you're still a few weeks away from releasing it.
I stopped the car, ran, called Elton. I said, call MCA. I want the record out in 5 days because Leah Roberts is going to be all over the radio. Yeah. And he did it. He put it out in a few days, rushed it before it was supposed to really be released. And no one ever heard of Leah Roberts. And I felt bad because she had a great record.
Leaving the Kids, they made a sign when it went into the top 100, number 95. I read that they made a little sign for you. And that's so special.
My wife put a sign on the door after being off the charts for 11, 12 years. Congratulations, Laughter hit number 96 on Billboard.
Gosh.
I'm a crier.
Yeah, no, that's an emotional moment. That's
I'm a weeper.
Your wife has always been such a support to you. I've read when she moved with you and always believed in you in all those years.
She gets the award. Yeah. She gets the award for staying with me all these years.
Yeah.
Because I'm a crazy artist.
Your kids have always supported you. And it's what was so great about that is when you heard Casey Kasem say it went to number one, that was another, just took 16 weeks and 12 years.
He hasn't been on the Hot 100 now for 9 years.
We were at the Beverly Hills Hotel and we heard Casey Kasem, the new number one by Neil Sedaka.
So it's no small thing when his comeback record hits number one.
And we danced to it and cried.
Written and recorded by Neil Sedaka.
And then I sang at the Troubadour.
Which was a huge deal in that year.
3 nights at the Troubadour.
And there were a lot of people there too. James Taylor,
Andy Williams, Johnny Mathis. Oh my God. Yeah. How am I going to perform in front of all these people?
1975, you were on top of the world. Well, Bad Blood, number one. And inspired by Gordon Lightfoot.
Gordon Lightfoot, Sundown. James Brown came to me when it was released and said, now you're in my territory. That sounds like a Bo Diddley James Brown song.
I love it.
I loved it. Da, 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 da. That was a great thing.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, Gordon Lightfoot had Sundown, which was about a woman sneaking down the back stairs, and Phil Cody wrote a great lyric. And
well, he said something about his mother used to say, "Don't talk to her. She's got bad blood."
That's what's inspired him.
And primitive superstition, and Elton wanted to sing a duet with you, but he didn't know a song, right?
He came to the studio.
Yeah, tell me about that.
On Santa Monica Boulevard, he said, I want to do a duet. I played a couple of songs, I forget which. And he said, when I got to Bad Blood, he said, I got the harmony already. That's the one. I want to do a duet with you. And he did it in 3 takes.
So you're waiting for him at the studio, though. And
I didn't think he'd show up.
It took a little while for him to get there. And you thought...
I said to Robert Appert, the producer, he's not coming. And up pulled the limousine with the funny glasses and the high-heeled jeweled boots, and in walked the top rock star in the world, singing background to my tune.
What an amazing story, too, because meeting you and he heard your records as a child growing up, and to give you that gift, mm-hmm. you know, to recognize that you had written these amazing songs that America wouldn't play, but the UK were, and he recognized that these are great songs.
He wrote the preface to the book Survivor, Rock and Roll Survivor. He wrote the preface. He said he used to hear me on that channel that was offshore. There was in England they didn't play rock and roll, so it was an offshore boat that had a radio station. I forget the name of the station. He heard my first 3 records. He said, so similar. We both write, play the piano. He was able to get us together.
Small change, I don't understand.
Tell us your thoughts on Elton and what that meant to you and just him as a human being.
He was very generous. He would open up Cartier, 8 o'clock in the morning, Cartier would open up for him on Rodeo. And he bought me a beautiful, after Laughter in the Rain, a beautiful diamond-faced watch. Absolutely gorgeous. He's a genius. He's just able to connect, and one song gets better than the other song. And the secret is the variety.
And look what you were able to do when you weren't forced into those 4 chords. How your music did the same thing. You know, with these albums that we've talked about, that every song was a little bit different. And it gave people a perspective into you that maybe they wouldn't have had before. Breaking Up Is Hard to Do became a hit song 5 different times. It was #1 for Neil Sedaka in '62, then for The Happenings in '68, then Lenny Welch in 1970, and then the Partridge Family in 1972. And then Neil became the first artist to take his old #1 hit and remake it again as a ballad to hit #1 again.
Don't say goodbye.
Really cool. Leave us a comment about Neil Sedaka and this incredible comeback story. Do you think it's one of the best comeback stories ever? What are your memories of these songs? Bad Blood, Laughter in the Rain, Breaking Up Is Hard to Do. Truly, just grateful that I got to sit down with this legend. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. Until next time, 3 chords. Yeah, the truth, my friends.